What's up guys, and welcome back. Today I'll be making an Afro/melodic house tune, sort of like kind of music, and this is what it'll sound like. So to start off, I'll get some drums down. That's a nice crunchy kick that I'll use. I'll set the BPM to 118, and let's just get that 4 on the floor rhythm. Let's go in here and go in the transient and just kind of cut off the very first click like that. And then we got a transient control, boosting the sustain. So let's duplicate it and we'll layer a real textured kick. You know, that's actually pretty good. And then we'll just cut out some stuff like this. Let's delete the transient and add an EQ to cut out the lows. Let's get a really tight clap. I have one in mind, this one. I'm gonna add a live snare for some rhythm and then go like da da da. That's good. Sometimes I just like to change the colors, so I just did that. I've dragged this loop in, which I found on Splice. But I'm not gonna use the entire loop. It literally also says Ramp on it, which is one of the artists from Kind of Music. I'm just gonna take a little percussion from it and then just make my own little thing. Add a transient booster to that. And I wanted to boost the sub on that tom, so. Now let's get some toms in. I know Bitwig has some very good toms. Let's just group these toms. Let's cut that short, like there. Maybe let's mute that. Oof. Well. Oh, that's also a cool shaker loop. Loops isn't cheating, guys. Just layer your loops, bro. That has a very nice texture. You know, I do always say that you should keep your tracks minimal, but in this particular genre, I really just want to layer as much as I possibly can on, because those textures on the drums, they just make it sound so nice. I'll only have a few melodic elements though. The main part of the loop and the drum is coming from these sounds here, the kicks, the claps, and the tom, and the percussion here. But the shakers and these percussion loops, they add so much. And we'll make our melody, and then I want a piano layer or something for the second 8 bars, and then honestly I think I'll layer it with an atmosphere or something here as well. But it is Afro House, so we also need that sustained pluck that just plays the same note in the background the entire time. For the melody, I think I'm going to start with some chords, and then I might chop that up or do something with it. I'm going to use a technique to chop this chord progression up into a melody that I learned from a video by Tash. He's a Bitwig producer, and I'll link the video in the description if you want to check it out. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to press on a note, and then here in the operators in Bitwig, we're going to change the repeat count to whatever number we want, and then we can see that there's these dotted lines here, here, and here. Let's make this a plucky sound like that, and if we do this with all of them, let's say we change this to 3. The problem is that this sounds pretty bad because they don't hit on the grid, but what we can do is we can add a quantize before this, so it'll quantize all of them, and let's say just 2 16th notes. And I'll mess around with the repeats of each note in the chord until it sounds kind of cool, like an ARP. Let's change this to 5. We can also move this over so you can see the dotted lines, they kind of change. Oh, that rhythm. Let's turn the key tracking up as well, just a little bit. Turn the noise up. I've added a random modulator and added that to the pitch. That gives a really cool analog feel. I've also added here another random, but this time it's triggering the panning, so it's moving from left to right. Alright, so I've added this LFO that gives it a really like plucky, bubbly movement, which sounds like this. It's just a super fast, simple saw wave LFO that's mapped to both the saturation, the filter cutoff, and the decay of the filter envelope and the actual decay of the sound. This is too much though, so let's turn the amount down and let's add another LFO. We can make this one that goes upwards instead, like that, and make it like this, and put it to a bar, and then we can map the amount of the first LFO with this other LFO, so we're modulating a modulator. That's pretty cool. We could turn it down a little bit though. I've added a key tracker here. Let's just make it that a bit steeper, and we'll map that to the decay. I want a little bit more structure on the panning, so let's add a curves. We make it look like this, and I'll map it to the panning as well. So now we both got a random and an LFO that's modulating the panning. So what I've done is added another ADSR. We already have one down here. I added another one that's just a plucky shape. Map that to the oscillator 1 pitch. I've mapped it to the filter cutoff as well as the filter key tracking. But as you can see here, the amount is in -2%. So it's not actually working right now. But what I'm going to do is add a random, make that sort of fast, and let's modulate the amount at which the filter ADSR works with the random. Next, I've added a reverb, just a convolution to make it sound like this. And lastly, just an EQ that looks like this. Let's just add a little bit of sidechain just to get some movement. Now let's make that distinct pluck. So I've just disabled all the modulators so it doesn't confuse you. It sounds like this with no modulators. It's super simple. It's just 2 sine waves. We got one here and we got one here. If we turn the filter off, it just sounds like very basic sine waves, and the filter gives it a little bit of pluckiness. And that's really it. Then we got the first random, which is doing the same thing as the last sound, giving that pitch variation. And then we got the LFO, which as you can see is turning up the volume of the noise and turning up the decay in the filter envelope. And then we got this rising LFO, which is doing sort of the opposite as the LFO on the other sound that was going down. This one's going up, and it's mapped to the noise, it's mapped to the fold of the sine wave as well as the skew, and the decay of both the ADSR and the filter. But as you can see, the LFO is only working 50%, so the white ball isn't going all the way up to the top. Then I mapped a random to this LFO amount, which as you can see, it will move randomly. And this is pretty cool, but I'll process it a little bit. Some decapitator, some delay, and some reverb. But I want to add a humanize, so we'll just do that as well here. And now let's make a melody. That has a pretty cool rhythm. We could just repeat that like that. Let's get an atmosphere in. We can spread it out and put it more in sides. I forgot to process the drums. I grouped them and then didn't process them. So I added a transient control first to boost the transients. And then a soft clipper and bitwig with just a little bit of drive to make them punch. And I'm going to copy this progression down here, and I'll put in a piano sound, and we'll have a nice piano layered in. And for this, I'm just going to turn off this stuff, so it's just normal chords. Let's turn down the... And we need some strumming to make it feel real, so we can just add a strum. Oh wait, I'm stupid. 17 bars with just the normal stuff, and then have the piano come in, because the progression is 17 bars long. Added a chorus here. Turn that down. And then a filter plus, which also has a random on it, which is moving the filter cutoff like that. And then a reverb as well. And an EQ, I'll just add like that. Well guys, that's it for this idea. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something as well. Let me know in the comments if you did. I really like this tune. If you want some of my sounds or want some help from me in your music journey, then you can check the links in the description. But it's time to play it through.